Hi everybody, come on in, have a look at this thing here. It's absolutely amazing. It's a scale model, a scale replica of, yes, you guessed it, the Titanic. If you look past the Titanic through the window, you can see the Titanic Museum here in Belfast, where you can recreate much of the experience without actually drowning. And I just thought that what I would tell you a little bit about this incredible ship, because we heard on the show only a couple of days ago one guy saying that the Titanic didn't actually sink. It was the identical sister craft, the Olympic, which would very soon afterwards meet the same fate. That's a conspiracy theory. However, the interesting thing is, if you look at even how the model's made, it's amazing. And if you look at the front of the craft, that sharp edge on the front, and everybody says that if the Titanic had hit the iceberg head on, it would not have sunk. It would have taken the impact, it would have been bent a little bit, but it would still have continued to have been safe for all of the people on it. The problem is that they hit the Titanic roughly here, where the strengthened area of the ship goes in, and the iceberg scraped right the way along here. Now, what is it that we've all learned about icebergs is that the bulk of the ice is under the water. Now, that's roughly where the red line is, and that's roughly where the sea is too. So if the bulk of the iceberg's below, it's ripping a hole right the way along. And of course, that meant there was no chance of it staying afloat at the time, and down it went. But the other things, you talk about amazing stories. When the ship was being built, this front area, again, if you come back around here, you see where the anchor hole is and the anchor's hanging out. In this front area, it was the very last part of the Titanic to be built. And one thing that they had to do was check the welds and make sure that all of the equipment used by the welders and the riveters had been removed. So what they did is they would do an area from there, say to there, an area from there to there, and on each occasion they would weld the area closed. And apparently when they did this area, there was a young boy who'd been sent in to collect all of the tools from the welders, and they waited for the boy coming out, and the boy didn't show. So rather than delay the voyage of the Titanic, which might not have been a bad thing, they welded up the ship so the young boy was lost in the skin of the Titanic, which is a horrible thing to do. There's another conspiracy theory. Come over here. Now, as you can see, if you, in fact, come around in front of me and look face on, there's a hanging hook on this model, and directly in front of the hook is where the captain of the ship would be, and obviously controlling the vessel. Now, they also say that the high priestess of Tutankhamun had her coffin and her temple discovered in ancient Egypt, and they'd flown it through to London, and they wanted it for a display in New York. So they moved the entire exhibit of this high priestess to Southampton, and it was placed on board. Now, guess where they put it? You see where the captain and his wheel is? Just on the prow that sticks out. If you look behind it, in fact, you can see the wheel. If you look very, very closely in there, you can see the wheel. However, look directly behind the wheel, you'll see a bow-fronted. If you move back that way a little bit, you'll see like a bow-fronted room directly behind where the captain stood. And that's where the safe was, where a lot of the rich people on board had kept their jewellery. But more importantly, it was in that room the cursed bones of Tutankhamun's priestess were housed. And they say that maybe as Lord Carnarvon died after discovering the bones of Tutankhamun, maybe death was inevitable for anybody who'd touched the tomb of the high priestess, because on Tutankhamun's tomb there's a phrase, "Death will slay with its wings all who disturbed the sleep of the pharaohs. And that's exactly what she had on her tomb too. Just a few conspiracy tales. There's so many about the Titanic. You'll remember we've regressed a few people back whose previous lives were on the Titanic. One was a rich woman, one was a woman who was a boy in a previous life, but a poor boy. And when we played them both out simultaneously for them to relive the moment that the Titanic sank, the timeline was absolutely identical. And I've never come across anything like that before. We'll have to play it again for you sometime. Alan Robson with you from the beautiful Titanic Hotel. And we disturbed a bride coming in here today. I'm so tempted to say she's bound to get doing. However, I hope the marriage goes down well. Anyway, that's just a little story for you. We're on at 10 o'clock. We're live from Belfast. Hope you'll join us.